A Czech story. The 12 months. There once was a widow who had a daughter named Helena and a stepdaughter called Maruszka from her first husband's marriage. The mother was very fond of Helena, but she hated Maruszka for being prettier than her own child. She scolded Maruszka and made her do all of the housework, with no rest from morning till night. Meanwhile, Helena was spoilt and did nothing but fuss over her clothes and eat cake. As time went by, the mother hoped that hard work would spoil Maruszka's beauty, but despite the hot water and soap spuds, the smoky fire and grease pans, Maruszka continued to grow prettier while Helena became uglier day by day.
No one will want to marry Helena if they see her sister,
the mother thought.
I must find a way to get rid of her.
One snowy winter's day, Helena decided she wanted violets to decorate her dress.
Go into the forest and pick some, Maruszka,
she demanded. But violets don't grow in the snow, said Maruszka.
Do as your sister asks,
snapped the mother.
And don't come back empty-handed, because if you do, I won't let you in.
She pushed Maruszka out the door and bolted it behind her.
That will be the last we see of her pretty face,
she chuckled. Maruszka trudged through the deep snow, weeping bitterly. For hours she searched the forest, shivering in her thin dress, until she noticed a flickering light among the trees. Stepping closer, she saw 12 men sitting on a large stone in a circle around a fire. Some were old, some were middle-aged, and some were young. They were the 12 months. The oldest, Great January, had a long, snow-white beard and held a staff in his hand. Maruszka stepped forward, trembling with cold.
Please, kind sirs,
she asked shyly,
may I warm my hands by your fire?
Come, my dear,
said January.
Make yourself warm. But why are you here?
Maruszka explained that her sister had sent her for violets.
If I return empty-handed, my stepmother will lock me out of the house, and I shall die in the snow,
she said. January listened thoughtfully. Then he said,
Brother March, you take the staff.
One of the younger months took the staff and waved it over the fire. At once, the snow began to melt, and the sky turned blue. Leaf buds appeared on the trees, and freshly green grass grew. It was springtime. To Maruszka's delight, violets began to flower beneath the trees. Pick them quickly, said March. Maruszka gathered a bunch of violets, then she thanked the 12 months and hurried home. Helena and her mother were surprised to see Maruszka return with the violets, but they didn't say a word of thanks. A day later, Helena decided that she wanted strawberries to eat.
You can be strawberries from the forest,
she demanded.
But strawberries don't grow in the snow,
said Maruszka.
Do as your sister asks,
snapped the mother.
And don't come back empty-handed. I won't let you in.
She pushed Maruszka out the door and bolted it behind her.
Now we've got rid of her,
she muttered. Once more, Maruszka trudged through the deep snow, shivering in the thin dress. Just as she thought her numb feet could go no further, she came upon the 12 months sitting around the fire.
Please, kind sirs,
she said,
may I warm my hands by the fire once more?
Great January welcomed her back.
But why have you come again?
He asked. Maruszka explained that her sister had sent her for strawberries. January turned to the month sitting opposite him.
Brother June, you take the staff,
he said. June took the staff and waved it over the fire. At once the snow began to melt. The sun shone, wildflowers bloomed and birds sang in the trees. It was summer. Nearby, Maruszka saw a patch of ripe strawberries.
Pick them quickly,
said June. Maruszka filled her apron with strawberries. Then she thanked the 12 months and hurried home. Helena and her mother were astonished to see Maruszka return with the strawberries, but they didn't give her a word of thanks. The following day, Helena decided that she wanted apples to eat.
Go to the forest and get some.
She told Marushka.
But apples don't grow in the snow,
Said Marushka.
Do as your sister asks,
Said the mother.
and don't come back empty-handed, because I won't let you in.
She said as she pushed Marushka out the door and bolted it behind her.
That's the last we'll see of her.
She said with a grin. Once more, Marushka trudged through the deep snow, shivering in her thin dress. Just as she thought her numb feet couldn't carry her no further, she came across the 12 months, sitting around the fire.
Please, kind sirs,
She said.
may I warm my hands by your fire once more?
Great January welcomed her.
Why have you been sent out in the snow this time?
He asked. Marushka explained that her sister had sent for her to find apples. January turned to one of the older months.
Brother September, you take the staff.
He said. September waved the staff over the fire, and snow began to melt. This time, ferns and ivy grew. A cold wind shook the leaves of copper and gold from the trees. It was autumn. Nearby, Marushka saw an apple tree laden with fruit. Pick some quickly, said September. Marushka could only reach 2 apples, so she picked those, then thanked the 12 months and hurried home. Helena and her mother were amazed to see Marushka return with the apples, but they didn't give her one word of thanks.
This is the sweetest apple I've ever tasted.
Said Helena.
Why didn't you bring more?
I couldn't reach them.
Replied Marushka. Helena flew into a rage.
I must have more.
She cried.
Mother, get my fur coat. I shall pick them myself.
The mother begged her daughter not to go, but Helena pushed her aside and set off through the snow. Helena wandered through the forest, searching for the apple tree until she came across the 12 months sitting around their fire. Without a word, she rushed up to warm her hands.
Why have you come here?
Asked Great January with a frown.
I'm looking for apples, but it's none of your business, you silly old man.
Replied Helena rudely.
Move out of the way, and let me get closer to the fire.
Helena warmed her hands and then left without a word of thanks. After she'd gone, January stood up and swung his staff above his head. Suddenly, the sky grew dark. The fire burned low, and snow began to fall thick and fast. Despite her fur coat, Helena shivered with the cold, and soon was lost among the snowdrifts. The mother waited anxiously for the daughter to come home. When Helena didn't appear, she threw on her shawl and went out into the blizzard to search for her. Marushka watched day by day for their return, until eventually the cold winter months passed and spring came. At last, the cruel mother and selfish daughter were never seen again.